show or explain the relevance of, I guess, is the cardiac cycle. Right? Okay. And the cardiac cycle was the heart rate, a heartbeat, all of the events of a single heartbeat. We looked at electrical events, we looked at mechanical events, we saw how they're correlated. We'll do some activities in lab that look at that. We saw that what we really want to investigate as far as the efficiency of the heart is cardiac output. And cardiac output was a function of stroke volume times your heart rate. In terms of stroke volume, the things that we want to look at for stroke volume was preload. And so for preload, we saw that it was intrinsic, it started with an increase in the end diastolic volume. That means we got more blood back in the heart, right? And as a result of that, because of just the structure of the heart, that resulted in a greater force of contraction and an increase in stroke volume and an increase in cardiac output. You can't prevent that from happening. I mean, that just happens kind of on its own. We saw that extrinsic causes of things that affect stroke volume were fit into these categories called contractility. And in particular, we looked at that single positive inotropic agent that's very common in the body called epinephrine. And epinephrine as a positive inotropic agent triggered an increase in the force of contraction. So if you did not have epinephrine being released on the surface of myocardial cells, they would contract with a particular force. But if you do have epinephrine binding to receptors on the surface of cardiac muscle cells, adrenergic receptors, via that IP3 pathway there, we cause more calcium to be produced in the cytoplasm. And hopefully by now you're aware of more calcium means more cross bridges. More cross bridges means greater force. Greater force means a greater cardiac output. And that's through that epinephrine. And then long-term issues of afterload are due really to just kind of back pressure. And by that, remember what we're looking at is this is the force that must be overcome to eject blood from the heart. The higher that is, the higher the diastolic blood pressure, the lower the stroke volume. Or the way to say it is, the higher the diastolic blood pressure, the higher the systolic must be to force blood out of the heart. So they kind of, create this sort of escalation. And obviously, you want your heart to beat with the least amount of force possible to maintain yourself at rest. You don't want to have it work at its maximal effort just at rest. That's not good. So these are the things that affect stroke volume. Now, heart rate, for reasons that we'll get to, or the mechanism by which we'll get to in a few minutes, there is a normal resting heart rate. And that normal resting heart rate we looked at was somewhere in the neighborhood of, 70 beats per minute or so, whatever, is a good resting heart rate. We know that you can modulate that. You can increase it. You can decrease that. Your parasympathetic system is responsible for decreasing heart rates. We'll see that the SA node over here really wants to beat at 100 beats per minute. At rest, we know that's too fast. So your central nervous system is constantly releasing acetylcholine on muscarinic receptors on the SA node, telling it to slow down, slow down, slow down, slow down. Okay. Right? At rest. Because if it wants to beat at 100, without any stimulation, if we allow stimulation on it, we need to slow it down. Parasympathetic tone, we call that, where the body's constantly telling it to slow down. Then as I need to increase my heart rate, the first thing I do is I just remove or inhibit the parasympathetic response. And what does my heart rate do? Increases from 70 up to 100. Does your heart rate need to go above 100? Sometimes, yeah, yours ever do that. And if it does, then that's going to be because we're releasing epinephrine and norepinephrine on the SA node, and that is triggering a positive chronotropic response, and that is going to give us a sympathetic response. And I'm going to show you today or not, we might do it Monday. The mechanism by which that works. So you guys okay with that? You good so far? Okay. I want to take about a 10-minute break.